Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are joining us from. I'm Annette Richmond, and this is Content Marketing School. And I am so excited to have Michelle here with me today. I met you several years ago on Clubhouse, and I got to know you there. And I was so thrilled when I invited you and you said yes, because I know that you're so busy. You just spoke at Social Media World? In
I did.
and so you're so incredibly busy. I am so grateful to have you here. So for anyone who does not know you, please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
It's a good day and a good morning from me here in Sydney. It's a Friday morning, so I'm coming to you from the future, and it's a rainy, miserable day here. So I hope your day turns out better than mine. But I'm excited to be here, Annette. When you asked me, I was excited because it's been too long since you and I have actually had the chance to speak. And, back in Clubhouse days, we were talking like weekly, at least, maybe more. So who am I? I am Michelle J. Raymond, and the J's there just so you can find me in amongst all of the millions of Michelle Raymonds on the platform. So that's the problem with a common name. But ultimately, I love teaching businesses how to leverage LinkedIn for business growth. So every action I take on the platform is all about how do we utilize this to grab opportunities and really stand out and lead industries. So I love it. I'm best known for company pages is what we're going to be talking about today. And something I want to let you know, Annette, like when we first started talking about them 3 years ago or so, whenever it was in Clubhouse land, I'm not sure that people understand company pages any better 3 years on. So just throwing that out there. If you're someone that's watching this and you're not so sure about pages, that's completely normal.
Yeah, or listening on the podcast. So that may be the case as well. And it's funny though, talking about common names. Although there are tons of Annette Richmonds as well. I have actually a sister-in-law whose name is Annette Richmond. She is a veterinarian in California. So you think that we all think that our name, but there's so many. And we were talking a little bit before we went live, and I told you that I'm so excited to have you here, but a little nervous because like people listening and watching, I don't know much about company pages. And so I am really going to just let you start with the idea of, what should people know when it comes to the whole, content marketing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said up front, most people don't know what to do with their company page. So they ignore it and then they hope that, everything else on their personal brand will kind of take over things and it'll all be fine. And, for many businesses, if you're a small business like a consultant, that might actually be worth it, but you're missing out on an opportunity to really build a business brand that backs up your personal brand and you can use the two together. And that's what I love doing, especially. Now, that doesn't mean, as I confessed before the show, that sometimes when I'm busy, am I going to focus all of my energy on putting content and, driving engagement to my company page? No, because the simple fact of the matter is when we do a post, if I do it on my company page versus my personal profile, we know that the post on my profile is probably going to go further. And that's because I've got way more connections and followers. And just the way that company page posts perform is different to personal posts. And there's lots of reasons for that, which I won't go into. But I would like to talk today a little bit about, well, what do you post over there? What am I seeing working? And maybe what's a good strategy for how you get the right mix of content? Because old school company pages, Annette, the ones, broadcast. We're amazing. We are the best. Here's our quarterly results. Like no one cares, people. This is a public service announcement. Nobody cares.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, I did a presentation for SHRM over the summer. And one of the things that I talked, obviously, their company pages, because it was to attract talent. And when you look at large company pages, you see the picture that's like 5 people all smiling. And it's like, oh, our interns from the summer. And yet this person, who I know, Felipe
Yeah.
Covino, and his company page, he would be interviewing people that work there who were giving tips on mortgages and things. And so, there's a whole other thing. So let's get started. We have a bunch of people here. Thanks so much for joining us. They're all here to see you, I know. And
Uh,
no, they are for sure. And so where does someone start? Because, my company page is obviously neglected and horrible as well. So how does somebody get started? What do they do?
Look, there's a guy called Simon Sinek that, talks about why, always start with why. And I think it's
Yep.
important to understand why are we going to put some stuff over on our company page. So if we start there, the number one reason is when somebody's built a relationship with you personally and it comes to that stage where they're going to hand over the cash, and maybe because the world's so easy to work with people you've never met before, maybe they're in other countries, they will start to do a bit more poking around. They want to find out, okay, sure, I like you personally, and I think I like your content, but are you someone that I want to physically trust to hand over my money and work with? And that's when they'll start doing a bit more of a deep dive. And maybe they go to your profile and they're looking at your work experience, and your business will pop up as the most recent experience, but they could go across to your company page. The same thing will happen is if they Google your business name because they maybe want to have a poke around your website, your LinkedIn company page is going to sit just underneath that in the search results. Now, if you're doing a bit of thorough investigation, which most of us do, we don't want to just accept the website on face value because it's never going to say anything bad. But if you want to have a look at the company page, we've got two choices. And what I say to people is, you've got two choices with your company page. If they click on it out of that Google search, are you going to roll out the red carpet and welcome them and create a really great first brand impression? Or are you going to leave it as the ghost town? And this is the option. So if someone lands on it and it's the ghost town, you have then got this moment where you cast the seed of doubt and maybe just break a little bit of that trust. And maybe that then becomes like a hesitation on their side for handing over the cash, which, as I said, I'm all about that part of LinkedIn. So that's why we're doing it.
Hmm.
And I think we'll all agree, stock images, I don't think we need to see any of those on a company page ever, especially those diversity shots that you said.
Oh,
5 people,
yes.
one of every color standing around a boardroom looking at one laptop. Like I've never done that in my whole career. Have you, Annette? Because I've
No,
never
never.
seen that in action.
Yeah.
Oh, it's infuriating. So let's just ditch the stock images up front. That's the first thing that I want people to do. But then, as I said, it comes down to how often will you post on the company page versus personal profiles, and they can be for employees as well. And ultimately, I think for most company pages, the maximum I tell people, unless it's like a really big corporation with lots of resources,
Hmm.
three times a week is more than enough. But for some businesses, like a small business, like a consultant, you might only be doing it once a week or maybe even once a fortnight. And the way I want you to look at it, so we're not going to worry about showing up in the feed and the reach and engagement and impressions because
Okay.
you'll give up, right? So I'm going to ask the people that are listening today, we're going to park that notion that every post has to be seen by a billion people, right? And that's the whole driver. What we're going to be doing is be creating what I call our greatest hits library. Now, what is a greatest hits library and what's that got to do with company pages? Now, Annette, I'm going to date myself and tell people straight up front, I'm 47, and back in the day, I would buy some records, but mostly CDs. And when you bought them, and I would, they were expensive back then.
Oh, yeah.
You would buy a CD, and on that would be like probably 20 tracks, and you bought that whole CD just to get the 2 or 3 songs that you really liked,
Yep.
your favorites, but you had to buy the whole lot, and you'd be like, I don't want the whole lot. I just want the good stuff. Now, what's this got to do with company pages? What I want people to start doing is we want all killer and no filler. So don't worry about keeping it ticking over just because. We are going to create your company page's greatest hits. So focus on quality. Maybe it's content that's performed well on a personal post and we're going to repurpose it over on the company page. Time-saving tip right there. But ultimately, we just want to be more focused and give up that quantity so that when someone lands in the library and they're doing that poking around, all of a sudden in that destination, it shows off the best version of your business. It's the most valuable content that you've got, the most helpful. And don't forget to include a little bit of who actually works there, what's going on behind the scenes. Just like you said with Felipe, the more we see those employee faces, the more we relate and the more powerful it is. So that's some of my tips about why we need it. And I hope that's helped some people kind of maybe reframe before we go into some of the things we can do.
I do, and I do want to ask you, and I want to say hello to some of the people here who have come to say hello. So hello to say it, I think, from Germany, and hi Sarah, so
Oh,
lovely to see you here, and also Joel, who I see all the time on TikTok. He's
uh,
just a mad maniac there over on TikTok. So so one of the things, because I love the idea of behind the scenes and employees. So if you're someone like me, or or most of the friends and colleagues that I know, where it's really just you, what do you do then? Is it pictures? I mean, you don't want, I'm thinking, having like cheesecake selfies of me, sitting at my desk smiling. But so what can you do to give that behind the scenes look? For
yeah.
how can I do that?
Yeah, sometimes that's what we need to do. You got to work with what you've got, and we might have these dreams of, wouldn't it be great if I had a fancy office with other people around and it looked like I was doing something more exciting, And I have the same struggle myself. Like, if you're watching this on a video, I've got a green screen behind me. You can't even see the rest of my room. Now, in my perfect world, I have this fancy, YouTube style background with all nicely lit. But the reality is, that's not the space that I have. I live in Sydney. Space is a premium, not one that I'm prepared to pay. But ultimately, what we're looking at is we are the thing that makes our business interesting. Our face is the thing that people will look out for when they're scrolling at a million miles an hour in the
Mhm,
feed.
mhm.
They will immediately stop. Now, why do I say, do this on a company page and not just like on our profiles? Because the difference between the content on a company page and a personal profile now, I don't want people to be able to tell that there is any difference. The more that you can blur that line so that people actually think, oh, maybe that is a personal post. It doesn't have highly branded graphics that read like an ad, because what do we do for ads? Scroll on by.
Mhm,
We're
mhm,
not
mhm.
interested. So by having your face in it, it can really slow people just for a moment to get that. Now, I think the other thing as well is that, we forget that people just want to see what we're up to. They don't really care if it's fancy. I would go as far as saying that no one actually expects anything fancy. It's the everyday that we can relate to, and it's that relatability that is part of why people choose to do business with us.
Yeah, and I appreciate this too. Sarah says that's a great analogy. Now you can just stream your favorites and it's a much better experience. And I really appreciate that too. I love that analogy as well. And when it comes to that, I know that for the company pages, the whole featured section is something that's newish there. So is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you mentioned it because it is reasonably new. We've had it on our profiles for a long time, but on company pages, we've only had it within 6 months, is,
Mhm.
if my brain serves me correctly. But ultimately, it works a little bit different because we've only got the choice of selecting from our posts. So you can highlight up to 3 posts. So you
Mhm.
have to create a piece of content first, and then you can use that in the featured section. I don't know why they made it different to profiles. I wish they worked the same. It would make life so much easier, but alas, that is not what happened. But ultimately, think about that as the billboard to draw attention to particular things that are important. Now, it could be your products and services, which is probably the default for a lot of people, but narrow it down. What is one product that you want to promote right now? And you can rotate these so you don't have to keep it there all the time.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a newsletter that you've started that you want to bring attention to that. Maybe you've got an event coming up like a LinkedIn Live or a LinkedIn Audio, or a face-to-face event. Just think about, how can I use it strategically? Now, the more choices you give people, maybe the more confusing. So if it's just one thing, that is aligned with your business goals and other promotions and work that you're doing in the business, then really utilize that featured section. And I'd say also your company page banner, another opportunity for you to really promote what's important in the business and where you're trying to draw your audience to achieve whatever those business goals are. And the company page should always align with that. So, for you, for your featured section on your company page, you may be thinking, oh, Michelle, what could I put? You could put a note that people could come and watch this, LinkedIn Live or follow your podcast, and just leave that there on
Hmm.
your company page. And even though you're doing all the work on your personal account, it's another opportunity to promote it. So you can see now you've almost doubled your chance of people seeing it, which is always helpful when it comes to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned newsletters, and I know that we have had personal newsletters around for, I think we're coming into the third year now. And like a lot of people, as soon as I was able to have access, because it was like it's really restricted for a while, and I'm not exactly
Yeah.
sure who had access and why, but when it became available to everyone, I jumped on it myself, and I've been pretty good. I've posted mostly monthly. I've just upped it to try to do twice a month. But anyway, but a lot of people, jumped on it and, 2, 3 months, maybe 5 months, and that was it. Now I know that first of all, LinkedIn now for personally, I can have, I think it's 5 newsletters if I'd want to, although I can't imagine why. But you can also do them on your company page. So do you advise like, should you say, should I take my newsletter and post my newsletter to my company page, or should I create a newsletter for my company page? It's almost too many choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to goals and resources. I will always go to strategy first and ask those questions about what are we trying to achieve and what resources do we have to try and achieve it. Now, in a perfect world, we'd be doing everything. Now, I don't know about you. I don't live in that world. I live in a world where I feel like I'm, juggling or like trying to keep the spinning plates going all the time. And there are times when, I drop my company page first. And, I used to feel guilty because people come to me, Michelle, you're the company page expert. And I'd think, oh, I should make sure that my company page is a shining example of what you should do. And I do try to do that. But if push comes to shove and I don't have a lot of time, then I park that and I always come back to it, right? And I look at where should I use my time. But ultimately, with company pages, with newsletters, I have got both, but I do publish more regularly on my personal profile than my company page.
Mhm,
With my clients, however, and you think, why would you want 5 newsletters? I've got some really big clients that operate globally. So sometimes they
mhm,
have a newsletter targeting a particular geography. Other ones have different brands that sell very different products related to very different industries. And so we split things up. So it's a way to
mhm.
keep all of your page followers in one place, but maybe separate some content out to direct to particular audiences. Now, I am absolutely a huge fan of newsletters for a number of reasons, but especially on company pages, if you can keep up with the workload, and that's my disclaimer.
Mhm.
If you can, why? Because you build up subscribers. Now, we know our company page posts aren't showing in the home feed, right? It's just an undisputed fact. You only have to scroll for a few minutes to try and find an organic company page post, and you'll be hard to find. But if you have a look at newsletters, building up subscribers, every time you post, they all get notified. And so it's a way to cut out the algorithm, so you don't have to get stressed about how does the algorithm work,
Mhm.
because you don't need to worry because it's going to all of those subscribers. So newsletters, I love. They're such a great repurposing tool. And I think if you're a small business, it's a great way to take some of your best content that performed personally and repurpose that over on a company page newsletter. They get indexed by Google as well, so you might get discovered off the platform. I just think that they're brilliant from the perspective of, okay, so if the rules of the game are a company page post is not shown in the home feed, there is no point doing more posts. There is no point trying to flog that dead horse, so to speak. So what do we do? Newsletters could be the option. And for the record, I also say LinkedIn Lives are the other thing that I think people should invest more time in for their company page.
Yeah, so I have a quick question for you, and someone commented here. Isabella says, "Ooh, I like blurring the lines. That's genius." And it is so true because I read a lot of studies about different things, and I'm sure you do too. And I read a recent one from Hootsuite, who does a lot of really great, interesting surveys. And it was one of the big concerns of consumers is the idea of, authentic, although I hate authentic. So we'll say genuineness. And so that is one way to have that on the pages. So my quick question to you before we go into lives, because I think that of course is really smart too. So if I was to say jump into a newsletter, maybe I'd want to publish one once uh, every couple of months instead of once a month and just do sort of updates. Okay. So jump in now, jump over to the LinkedIn lives. I'm just letting you lead me. So wherever you go, I will follow.
Look, LinkedIn Lives, the other thing, as you said earlier, I got to speak at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego about a month ago. And these were the two things. So I'm sharing exactly with your audience some of the tips that those guys got. And why do I love LinkedIn Lives? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think they're the ultimate content format that you can repurpose a million different ways. And they are the gift that keeps on giving. But the other thing is, again, specifically for company pages, if I kind of park that for one moment, is if you go live on your company page, you have the opportunity, and sorry, this happens for all LinkedIn events. Every single individual on LinkedIn can invite up to 1,000 people to come to events per week. So if you set your company page LinkedIn Live up 2 to 4 weeks in advance, and you've got a small team, you can really leverage those targeted invites because we've got filters to say, is it geography, industry, company, like lots of cool things, and invite them, right? Again, why are we doing this? See you later, algorithm. Like you might be trying to suppress us, but we found other ways around it. So this is what I think the combinations of subscriptions with the newsletters and invites with events, such a power combo. And again, just something that I always look and go, okay, we've got to try and save time, like because we're all
Yeah.
stretched so thin with content. Some days the never ending beast of trying to keep up with creating more and more content on more and more platforms. I'm pretty sure that's why I've got a few more gray hairs these days because I love creating content, probably more than most. And there are days when I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? Like, do you feel like that, Annette?
Oh, I do, and I love it too. I studied media in college and English in college, so writing and all. I love, I was a magazine writer in a former life, so I love, love, love that stuff. But it is very time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I did some research recently for a presentation I was doing, and they were saying social media managers that are content marketers that are, responsible for that piece are spending up to 33 hours. So it was over 80% of their work week just creating content. Now, if I cast my mind back to working in corporate land, I'm not sure in all the time with the meetings and life happens, but they're really overwhelmed. And so we've got to be smarter about this. And I think the longer that I offer training services to clients, the more I realize my job is to simplify things and strip things back and just do the things that are efficient and effective. They're my two favorite words that I'm using at the moment. And I think it's really important that you have a LinkedIn strategy that ticks those two boxes. And especially with your company page, how can we keep it ticking over? Put those greatest hits in there without overwhelming ourselves, because the risk is you get creator burnout, you give up altogether, and then that is the worst thing that we want for anyone's business if you're looking to leverage it, if that's where your audience is. And, there's lots of little disclaimers here. You shouldn't start a newsletter if you only have, a few hundred page followers. You should be building up the numbers a bit higher, but start to think, where should my time be best spent? And just realize it's the tortoise and the hare. It's just going slowly and doing what you can do. But those little 1% better every day, as James
Mhm,
Clear
mhm,
says,
mhm.
those atomic habits, it's ultimately just the little things, and being consistent and persistent over time is where you'll start to outshine your competitors,
Yeah.
and that's the real opportunity.
As I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about this, I'm realizing that because there are no people viewing my content from my company page, and the company page is kind of its own little isolated little thing over there. that I could certainly, because I create a lot of content, I could certainly repackage that content into a newsletter and put it on my company page. And that would not be much of a heavy lift, really. I mean, it's really, yeah, yeah.
Look, most of us think that when we put all this effort into creating a piece of content, it's one and done. It's almost like we get the torch and, burn it to the ground, and the feed does that every 48 hours for us. It's like we
Mhm.
put all this effort in, we do maybe research, create graphics, maybe it's a LinkedIn Live, and then we just let this stuff disappear. And what I'm saying is don't let it disappear. Give it another shelf life and put it over on your company page. Now, put a bit of time between it or do it at the same time. It really doesn't make any difference. But I prefer with my clients to put a bit of time between the two things. But you can always schedule it. So you do it on your personal profile and then schedule it on your company page in 3 months' time. The chances of the same people seeing it are so minimal. We wish everyone saw every piece of content. Absolutely, that would be the dream. But the fact is, when we're scrolling LinkedIn, and think about this for yourself, scroll LinkedIn. Oh, I've seen that post before. What do? We don't blame the person. We just think it's the silly algorithm doing it again. And we just keep scrolling. Like no one's upset by it. No one's offended. No one goes, oh my God, I've seen Annette's post again. Like we don't
There she
pay
is
that much
again.
attention. I wish we paid that much attention, but literally to win at content marketing is repeating pretty much the same message over and over again in so many different ways.
I think it's interesting. I just want to bring this up because the comment someone just made a comment. I never accept these auto newsletter invitations from people that I just connected with because they finds it annoying. But the thing is, we're not doing that. LinkedIn is doing that,
Yeah.
and so it's and I have heard from some people that they have gotten a lot of new subscribers that way, and
Yeah.
so Michelle, time is just whipping by here, and I can't believe it. And I want to be respectful of your time. I want to bring up your LinkedIn profile um, because obviously people should be able to find you. And here we are on your banner, your social media world speaking. It's so exciting. It's so and when I looked at that and then I found out, oh my gosh, I not only know one, I know two people speaking there. I felt a little bit of like, a little rubbing off on me too.
Oh, look, I have to say that was a career highlight for me. It was one of my goals that I'd been working up to try and achieve and to be able to travel internationally and go to San Diego and do it. And there was about 250 people in the room, all just literally with their iPads and notepads and just literally taking so many notes about how to make these company pages work, because people are confused. I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to maybe help some other people take steps that are manageable and achievable rather than me going stacks on. I'm just going to pile up a whole bunch more stuff and tell you, that you're not doing enough and make you feel guilty. And, like that's not my style. I want to give people things that they can take action on. And that was such an amazing opportunity to do that face to face. Not going to lie, it was a bit daunting at first, realizing, oh my God, there's 250 people in this room. But when I get to talk about company pages, you know me, I've been doing it for ages and it's just my happy place because I love to help people kind of take away some of that confusion. And to your point just before about the auto invites to the newsletters, I love them. But Said, if you don't like them, the good news is you can go into settings and turn that off so you don't receive them. So if it's annoying for you, turn it off. But I also say give long form content a bit of a second look because I think you'll find that people that are putting effort into those, they're actually worth it these days. I think in the beginning it was just everyone wanted them for the sake of it, but the
Mhm.
people that are still going a few years later are actually putting in some real effort, and I highly recommend you checking some of them out. If they don't deliver, unsubscribe, it's pretty easy, but yeah, the ones I consume, and I consume a lot on LinkedIn, they actually are really super helpful.
Well, I find that too, and I was just scrolling up on your pager because you have a podcast. I believe you even have more than one podcast? Plus
Yeah, so I've got that's my news. So what you can see there is my newsletter is front and center. But I do the LinkedIn branding show is one podcast that I do with Michelle Griffin, and the
Mhm.
other one is now called Social Media for B2B Growth. It used to be called LinkedIn for B2B Growth until I got a cease and desist letter by the LinkedIn legal team to say I
Mm.
couldn't use that name anymore, which was disappointing, but I totally understand. So social media for B2B growth is the podcast. And you can also find me over on YouTube sharing stuff about company pages. So, and you just have to type in at Michelle J. Raymond and you'll find the channel. But yeah, I love creating content. I love company pages, mixing the two together. Thank you for letting me share with your audience about how they might be able to, maybe take that company page, dust it off, bring it back from the dead, and give it a bit of love, just in case someone pokes around and lands on it. What impressions you want to leave them?
So I always like to ask everyone who's on my show, and I know we're like right at our end now, but is there anything, because we've talked about a lot, is there anything that I haven't asked you, you haven't mentioned, that you think would be a good thing to mention before we go?
Yeah, I think the thing to do, the best tip that I can give people is when it comes to company pages, the second that you stop comparing pages to profiles and seeing how they perform and how they work and going, this one's better than that one, or that's, like company pages are rubbish because they don't do what profiles do. I just need you to park that. It is the nonsense that I see on LinkedIn all the time. They're not designed to work the same. That is never going to change. And ultimately, it is how do you leverage the tools that you've got in the best way possible based on your goals and resources to be able to achieve your goals. And if you cut off your branding, your company branding, then you're really missing an opportunity. And sometimes it's just as simple as being able to tag your company name when you do a personal post and vice versa. We're connecting those two dots.
Mhm.
And it could be for people, maybe down the track, you have employees, maybe you want to sell your business. There's all kinds of reasons that may not work now, but just keep it ticking over. But yeah, the minute that we start comparing, of course, they don't like stack up when you compare them side to side, but they're not meant to. And so, yeah, just letting go of that misnomer, I think, and I see that as posts that infuriate me about, Bill Gates has got, more personal followers than the Microsoft page, or, like all those kind of ones. And I was like, yeah, but I could go and find you examples where the Nike company page has got more followers than whoever the CEO of Nike is. And, and same with Netflix and all other big brands. So it's about finding what works best for your business. And sometimes that is not your company page. And sometimes it is incorporating it. And again, it's just start with your goals, work out what you're trying to achieve, have a look at your resources, and then take action.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so thrilled, as I told you, that you said yes. And thank you to everyone who has been with us. I'm sorry I wasn't able to bring all your comments up, but I was just so listening. I wanted to get all of Michelle's information greedily here, so that it can be, shared with others who will be watching the replay and listening on the podcast. So again, I thank you so much for being here. I know I learned a ton, and I know others have as well. So thank you so much, and I'll see everybody else next week.